You are listening to the Freeform Rock Podcast with Mark Alden Taylor.
Welcome to another edition of the Freeform Rock Podcast. We have Lee on the line. What's up, Lee?
Oh, I'm still hanging in there, hanging on the line. I'm hoping my clothes will dry soon, but hey, how are you, Mark?
Fine. And then we have a special guest today. We have a real guest, a guy who wrote a book. Like, we feel stupid. Lee's a writer. I'm not a writer, but we have Joe Milliken, who wrote the book Let's Go, Benjamin Orr and the Cars, right? Did I get that right?
You got it right.
All right, Joe.
Hey,
so how you doing today?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, guys. It's great to be here. I'm sitting up in my office up in Vermont, and looking forward to chatting with you. Let's do it.
Right on, man.
So,
I'm
Lee, did you have any questions?
I'm sister's place in New York.
I'm just in my room on my desk, looking at the computer, talking to you guys.
Oh, cool.
Sounds like we're all ready to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
well, let's go.
Let's go.
Sorry.
That's a good pun. I love it.
Yeah.
So, Joe, how did you come to write a book about Benjamin Orr?
Well, to be completely honest with you, it was actually brought to me by a Cars fan. It was suggested to me by a Cars fan. I've been a Cars fan all my life. When I was introduced to rock music when I was a 7th grader, the first Cars album had just come out, and they were one of the first bands that I ever got into. So they've always been a sentimental favorite of mine. But I'll also say that when I was getting ready to work on my first book, the Cars and even Ben weren't necessarily at the top of my list, although they were one of my favorite bands. So it probably wouldn't have been something that I explored on my own, but like I said, a Cars fan found me on social media and approached me about it and said, hey, you should write a book about Ben Orr. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, Ben Orr is like one of the, I don't know, he sang a lot of the hits, but people always go to Rick Ocasek on this band, and they don't look at his what Ben did for the band. And that's kind of sad, because Ben, I got into the Cars because of Ben, his songs, like Moving in Stereo, watching that movie, what's that, the movie with Phoebe Cates on a diving board. And
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, with the guy whacking off in the bathroom to the song. It's a freaking one of the greatest teenage scenes a teenager could ever watch, It's like,
well,
but it's go on.
I guess you're right. Generally speaking, I guess Rick is the more prominent or most prominent member of the band. But I think a lot of that has to do with, he was the leader of the band. He was the main songwriter, lyrics, and so I guess that is the general perception. However, I've been working on this book for a long time, and I've talked to a lot of Cars fans, and true Cars fans, they all love Ben too. Ben, and as a matter of fact, there are a lot of fans out there who are attracted to the Cars because of Ben. So he was a prominent figure too, and he's a co-founder with Rick too. So he was there from day one, right alongside Rick. So I understand what you're saying about Rick, though. I mean, I think it's more though because he was sort of presented as the leader of the band and the lyricist. So I think that had something to do with it.
Yeah, but it's like I know, for instance, like Ben and Rick were in a group called Milkwood. And this was back before the Cars, and of course, Rick. I think when people asked Rick about Milkwood, he kind of was like, okay. But it's like, but Ben wrote a song called Linkin Park on that album, and so Ben did do some writing. But it's like, I was curious, how come Ben might not have written more songs?
Well, I mean, Ben always wrote songs. I mean, going all the way back to his early days in Cleveland. And he did write early on.
Yeah.
But when he ended up in the Cars, Rick just sort of, I mean, that's what he did. And, you know, Ben, I'm not going to say Ben took a back seat to that, but Ben was a performer. Ben had one of the greatest voices ever in rock. And he was really okay, if you will, with Rick kind of taking the lead in the lyrics part of it.
Yeah.
So Ben, especially when Ben did his solo album in the 80s, he sort of said that, you know, he was a little shy about lyric writing. He wrote great melodies. Ben was more writing the music part of it. So he was okay with Rick writing lyrics.
Yeah.
But yes, he did do more writing early on in his life, and as you know, when the Cars started and Rick kind of took control of that, Ben just kind of went along for the ride and sang all the hits.
Yeah, I think it was probably then a case of the group thinking, what's best for the group? And regardless of who wrote what, if it's a good song, it's a good song. So I think that probably might have been part of it.
Absolutely. And, you know, speaking of that, they kind of did that because, you know, Ben and Rick shared lead vocals, and Rick sang a few hits too.
Yeah.
And they used to take that same approach in the studio when it came to choosing who was going to sing what songs. Like Rick would write lyrics for a song, and he wouldn't specifically have in his head, I'm writing this one for me, I'm writing this one for Ben. He would go into the studio with the songs, and they would both take a crack at it, and they'd both sing it and kind of go, yeah, you do better with this one, that one's yours.
Oh, yeah.
So they took that same approach when they decided who was going to sing what when they went in the studio. So
yeah. Plus, I'll go on, Mark.
I was just gonna say. Plus, Ben had a great solo album. I thought that got overlooked. The Lace. I have that on vinyl. It's so good.
Yeah, I have it on vinyl too.
Yeah.
Yeah, a great album for sure.
I'm wondering I'm wondering about how the group went from first being Milkwood when, like for instance, Rick was like Rick Orchasik or whatever it was, and Ben was Ben Orzechowski, and they did an album on, like, I think it was Paramount back in the mid 70s, and people might thought, who are these Polish versions of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young? And then all of a sudden they Rick is Rick Ocasek, Ben is Ben Orr, and then they do really good pop style stuff that's like at that time of the future. I'm wondering how they might have gone from one to the other.
Well, they originally got together in the late 60s, and they actually played together in a couple of different bands and moved around the country a little bit, trying to make it. It took them about a decade before they actually, turned into the Cars and got a record deal. So they logged a lot of miles to get where they got. And in the early 70s, that is when, the whole, like you just said, Crosby, Stills, and Nash and that whole acoustic sounding thing was big. So, you try to take advantage of whatever trend is big at the time. So that's what they did. They had more of a folky group, acoustic sounding, singer-songwriter kind of thing. Yeah. And they did it as a duo for a while, just the two of them, doing small clubs in Boston. And then it turned into Milkwood. And so they were trying to take advantage of the scene at the time, if you will. Not the greatest version of it, because even though they got a record deal, the record went nowhere, and the band eventually broke up. But I want to say that they were both rockers, though. They never stopped loving rock and roll. They just, like I said, they tried to maybe take advantage of the trend at the time to try to get that record deal. And they did get the record deal, but that's as far as it went. Then they, kind of turned it back into rock. They were actually had a band together called Captain Swing in Boston. They started as Captain Swing, changed in and out a couple of different band members, and eventually morphed into the Cars.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I think this band and Cheap Trick is like what became the alternative in the 80s and 90s. They just put those two bands together and they made their own genre, because there was no alternative genre when the Cars started or Cheap Trick. I think they invented the genre, both these bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the Cars hit it big, they were definitely very unique sounding. That combination of rock, pop, new wave, that whole kind of thing. They were definitely pioneers, and when they hit it big, they definitely, nobody else sounded like them. They were unique for sure.
Yeah, nobody sounded like them. It's like, damn, this band. I didn't get into them when they first came out. The bands I was in at that age, I was like 7 or 8. The first bands I got into were Foreigner, Double Vision, and the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's. Those were my first 2 rock albums that I got into, and then slowly I got into the Cars and other bands. And the Cars, when I first heard this album, it just blew me away because, like I said, I was watching HBO as a kid. I saw that scene with Phoebe Cates on the diving board with that song. I go, who's singing? I was like distracted with the song more than until Phoebe Cates showed her boobs. And I was like, oh, wow. And my mom walked in, changed the channel. But I was going, I need to know who this group is. So I looked it up and found out it was the Cars, and I went and bought that tape.
I was the kind of guy who, if I was watching Phoebe Cates, I would just be watching Phoebe Cates, and if my mom turned the channel, I would have said, "Mom, who did those boobs belong to?" but
I can remember also the very first time I heard the debut Cars album. I remember exactly what I was doing. I was in 7th grade, and that is. They're one of the first bands, and that was one of the first rock albums that I ever got into. So yeah, I said, they've always been a sentimental favorite band of mine. They weren't necessarily at the top of my list when it came to what I was going to write about for my first book.
Oh yeah, with me, when I was growing up, the Cars were a group that everyone was listening to. Except I didn't always listen to radio. I usually just bought albums and just listened to that. And so my schoolmates bought the Cars. I saw the posters. I saw the advertisements for the Cars. So I knew of them, but I didn't know any of their songs. And I just asked some people because I just wanted to know what they sounded like. I said, I've heard of the Cars. What kind of music do they do? And all they would say is, they're good. Okay, they're good, but what do they sound like? They just sound like good music. And I was like, well, okay, but I still don't know. And then finally, I heard Let the Good Times Roll. And the first time that I heard it, I had a hairstylist named Steve Watkins, and he was also a guitar player, and the name of the place where they styled hair was called Amazing, so he called himself Amazing Stevie Highwatt Watkins. And then once a year, him and the other hairstylists did like a jam session for their friends and customers who used to go to their shop. And then so I had a little tiny rinky-dink tape recorder, and I recorded them playing their gig, and one of the songs they played was Let the Good Times Roll. So I knew that song, but I just didn't know it was a Cars tune. I thought it was like an old, like, Kinks song or something. But I thought, hey, that's a good song. And then later when I heard the Cars do it, I was like, this is different than how Steve Watkins and his group did it, but it's a good song. And then shortly after that, I heard My Best Friend's Girl, and then it became one of those things where I can say, yeah, I know the Cars. I've heard a lot of their stuff on radio, but it took like many years before that happened.
I see. I guess if you're going to label them, I think the media mostly labeled them as a new wave band.
Yeah.
So I think they've either been called new wave and, also obviously classified as rock or classic rock now. I think it kind of falls in the middle somewhere. It's got new wave tendencies, but there's also classic rock. I mean, because there's 9 tracks on that first album. Every one of them has been on classic rock radio. So.
Oh yeah,
it's like a singles album. The whole album is like just play the whole album.
It's their debut album was actually the band joked about it. They called it their greatest hits album.
Yeah.
So with Benjamin Orr, he had like the sweetest voice of the Cars. It's like you could sit there and listen to him all day. Rick Ocasek was a little bit more rougher, a little bit more higher, but Ben Orr just had like, I don't know, I've never heard anybody sound like Ben Orr. I've heard people who could sound like Rick, but Ben Orr just had one of the unique voices of rock.
Yeah.
And it was like...
I would have called him the Brad Pitt of rock.
Yeah, he's a beautiful man.
well, you said that you said he had the best voice in the Cars, and I think he has about the best voice in rock. I mean, he is right there for me with Paul McCartney, David Bowie, Paul Rodgers of Bad Company, and Ben. Those are like the 4 classic rock voices to me.
Yeah, it's like people,
that was definitely a gift.
Yeah, it's like people. Sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's like people think he wrote the song "Drive" just because when he sang it with such feeling as if it was his tune.
Yeah, absolutely. He actually said about Drive that when the song was presented to him, he said he said he knew some of Rick's songs, like they just flowed out of him. He didn't have to think about how he was going to sing them when he went into the studio to record. He said it just kind of comes out,
Oh yeah.
And he was also well known within the band for he was a one take kind of guy. He'd go in there and do a song in one take, and it would be done. And they actually got used to recording with him like that. So it was a gift. For sure.
Yeah, I agree with you on one of the best voices in rock, and nobody could emulate him. They have, like in Journey, they have that Filipino guy. He sounds like Steve Perry, but I've never heard somebody sound like Benjamin Orr. I don't think the Cars could ever get anybody to replace him. Plus, I think he's very overrated as a bass player also.
Very solid bass player for sure. I mean, he wasn't a virtuoso bass player, but he didn't need to be. I mean, you know what I mean? He wasn't doing, complicated progressive rock. They were just a rock/pop band, and Ben just sat in the pocket and did his thing, and not a lot of flash, but he didn't need to do that.
He didn't need to be a
his presence. His presence alone did it for sure.
Like Geddy Lee's my favorite bass player, but Benjamin Orr always went with the song. He didn't have to do a flashy, but or like a Billy Sheehan. He just played with the song and made the song rhythmic. It's so much rhythm in the Cars. I love rhythm and melody, and there's so much melody in Benjamin Orr, and I think that's why I like him a lot. It's like,
I think his bass playing actually bridged the new wave and the rock sounds together that made them so unique. I think Ben's bass playing was a unique thread, for sure.
Oh yeah, they could have. I could have imagined them being called Benjamin Orr and the Cars. Just like they have Katrina and the Waves. It would have worked. It just flows like Benjamin Orr and the Cars.
Well, the other members look like a ragtag punk group, and then he was like the freaking glam guy in the group. So it could have been done.
They were all pretty classy dressers, though.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a certain style on stage, and when they first made it big, they had like a color theme. They were basically like black and white and red on stage, and the clothes they wore and stuff. So they were really sharp. They were all sharp on stage for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
it goes with the music, colorful clothes.
Absolutely.
I was just wondering, have you ever seen the Cars live?
You know what? I never got to see the Cars live. I started going to concerts maybe a little later than some rockers, but I think like the first concert I went to, I think I was a freshman in high school, or maybe a sophomore. So when I started going to shows, the Cars were still around, but somehow it never happened. I think back about that now and try to figure it out. Why didn't I ever go see them? Because I always loved them. It just, I don't know. Somehow it never materialized. So no, I never did get to see the band. Although I did get to see the latest version of the band, because when they got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this past April, I made a trip to Cleveland, and I actually saw them get inducted. So I did see them perform at that, obviously, unfortunately, without Mr. Orr.
How much did that set you back?
Oh, yeah.
I heard it's expensive to get in there.
Say?
How much did that set you back to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
It actually wasn't bad.
Wasn't bad.
I had a nosebleed seat, but that's okay. I was there.
I wanted to go to the one Rush got inducted over here in L.A. I wanted to go to that one, but it was like sold out in minutes. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one sold out quick too. But my public relations coordinator for the book, Donna, she is actually like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has like a membership club kind of thing. And she's a member of that. And one of the privileges of being a member of that club is you kind of get first crack at getting a hold of some of those tickets before they go out to the general public. So she actually got to get in on trying to get a couple of tickets, and she did. She got one for the both of us. And
cool.
Yeah, we met in Cleveland, and they had a whole media day the day before at the Rock Hall, and I actually was there, and because of my book, I did some radio interviews. I appeared on a TV interview with Fox News out of Cleveland. So it was
cool.
So on top of getting to go to the ceremony and see the band get inducted, I got to be included in the media day and got to promote my book, and it was a fun 4 or 5 days. Because, I mean, and also let it be known that Cleveland is Ben's hometown. He's from Cleveland, so it was huge. It was a huge event for sure.
So if you go to Boston, is the Cars still played all over the radio stations there?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure they're still played all over classic rock radio, everywhere.
I heard the really crazy about the Cars in like the Boston area the most. It's like,
oh yeah, of course. That's where they launched. You know, that's where they got their record deal and really became famous. So they're considered they're considered a Boston band for sure. Even only one of the members is actually from Massachusetts. But they're a Boston band and they're still huge in that city for sure.
Cool. So
okay.
So is your book out yet, or?
The book is not out yet. It will be released on November 11th. So it's getting close. Only a couple of months away. You can actually pre-order the book right now through the publisher's website. The publisher is Roman and Littlefield. And you can also order it. My public relations director and I just launched a website for the book. It's real simple.
Cool.
Yep. BenOrrBook.com. You can go to my website. Tells you a little bit about the book. There's a few photos there, and there's a link where you can actually pre-order the book. So it's not out yet. It's not physically available yet, but you can pre-order it right now.
Yeah, I'll have these links in the show notes so people could go pre-order the book.
I think it will be some that I'll want to check out.
Yeah, me too. And I there's a lot of books I want to get right now, but this book sounds very, very interesting. On one of the members of the group that I actually love in this band more than anybody. He's my favorite member. I have his solo albums more than Rick's. Rick's solo albums are kind of off to me, but I love Ben's. His voice is just so awesome, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The way he sings a melody, it's just nobody can sing like him.
Like I said, he's one of the top 3 or 4 singers for me in rock. No doubt about it.
All right, so you want more? Sorry, anything else you would like to promote your book? Say about your book? What's going on with it, or you already said?
Well, I will say that What is that noise in the background?
Lee's in New York.
That's probably the
sound like
sirens.
A trolley or something.
It's the sirens in New York. It's
I see.
Just an ambulance. I don't think they actually go anywhere. I think that they're just, this is New York. We need to test the sirens occasionally. So you might see but it's not often.
Well, look, to tell you briefly about my book, it was kind of a unique journey. I told you how a fan contacted me out of the blue and said, you should write a book about Ben Orr. So I thought to myself, well, why wouldn't I just write a book about the Cars? But I investigated Ben a little bit and found out, like I mentioned to you, that he's originally from Cleveland. And I looked into it a little bit more. Actually, of a childhood star in Cleveland when he was young. He joined a band called the Grasshoppers when he was 16 years old, and there was a TV show based in Cleveland called Upbeat. It was a music TV show, kind of like American Bandstand. It was the American Bandstand of Cleveland.
Wow.
And Ben's band at age 16 was the house band on that TV show.
Cool.
And that TV show was nationally syndicated all over the country. So at 16 years old, his band was the house band on a TV show.
Wow.
So I'm reading all these things, and I'm going, that's it. That's the hook. I'm going to do this. I asked a few Cars fans that I knew. A couple of them said, I had no idea that he did that. So that's what hooked me and made me said, I'm going to write a book about Ben.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I can't interview the man because he passed away in 2000. So what do? You have to contact as many people who knew him as possible so they could all be his voice. So that's what I started to do. And I have been working on this book for 11 years total.
Oh, yeah. It's sort of like Steely Dan. Someone did like a whole biography of them, but they didn't participate. They couldn't be contacted for some reason, and the book came out, and they didn't say anything about it. And I think finally, years later, they asked them about why you didn't do interviews for books and stuff, and they said, we were touring, and we were busy, so
right,
kind of like that. So they did a whole thing on them, and they didn't get involved just because they were still busy doing music.
Right. So anyway, what I did was I interviewed as many people as I could. Childhood friends that he went to school with, his early bandmates back in Cleveland. Once they got famous, record executives, famous rock photographers, studio people.
All right.
I interviewed about 120 people for this book.
That's cool.
Damn.
So it is a detailed account of Ben's life that took a long time to do, and I'm really excited to have it finally come out.
Yeah. Plus a lot of those people, like especially ones who are not necessarily well known, who are like maybe like old friends or some like. I'm not saying you did, but let's say there was a next door neighbor who never got interviewed in anything. People like that are also very willing to do interviews because they're like, it'll give them a chance to talk about their side of the story. And so I think it's really cool when you can get people who might not have had an opportunity to talk to be able to open up and say a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah, you're right. And a lot of these people were more than willing to talk about Ben. I also want to say, though, that part of the reason that it took me this long to get this book together, along with the fact that I have a regular job and a family, too. I mean, I wasn't like sitting in my office 8 hours a day working on this book. It was a part-time kind of thing. Do it in your spare time. But I learned very quickly in the interview process that Ben was a very private man. On stage, he was a rock star. When he left the stage, he flipped a switch, and he became a regular, normal, private guy.
Okay.
So he was so private that a lot of people I approached were initially not interested in talking to me, saying, I'm not so sure Ben would want this book coming out. But I kind of worked out a formula where I would say, look, I'll ask you questions. You'll only respond to what you want to respond to. I'll create the quotes for the book. once I get them in the manuscript, I will show you your quotes, so you can see exactly what's going to be in the book, and you can approve it before it goes in. And that's how I started convincing people who were skeptical or maybe apprehensive about doing it. That's how I convinced them to do it. So there's a lot of people in this book who know exactly what's going to be in there, so there'll be no surprises to them.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a long, painstaking process, I tell you, but well worth it in the end.
Yeah, man,
Right
that's
on.
cool. I can't wait to read this, and all the fans out there who are listening, maybe our 30 listeners, get out there and pre-order the book. Ben Orr, let's go, Benjamin Orr and the Cars, man. This sounds like a really killer book. So right now we're gonna review the first Cars album with Joe here. And Joe, I usually talk about the first album and where it debuted and how it came out, but you'd probably know more information than me because I'm reading off Wikipedia. So you want to give a synopsis of the first Cars album before we go into it?
Sure. What I think is most unique about this album is that, it's got to be one of the 3, 4, 5, 6 best debut rock albums of all time. It's got to be right up there with, say, the first Boston album, which is another album from Boston that is, every song on it has been in classic rock radio everywhere. So I think that's what's really unique about this first Cars album. Like we said earlier in this interview, or maybe we said it before we got on the air, but we said it's like a greatest hits album.
Yeah, it's like every song on it is played on classic radio.
Think about it. A couple other things I can tell you about it is that the Cars had been playing these songs in the bars for a couple of years before this album came out, so they knew the songs inside and out when they went into the studio.
Oh yeah.
They recorded this album in 12 days.
Wow.
It took them only 12 days to record the album, and then another 9 days to mix it. So in like 2 weeks, or a little more than 2 weeks, they recorded this entire album. So I thought that was a pretty interesting aspect. I can also tell you that the album went high in the charts, but it didn't crack the top 10. I think it made it to like number 18 on the album chart. However, the top 200 album chart, it remained on the Billboard Top 200 album chart for 139 weeks. That's nearly 3 years. That album remained in the top 200. And as a matter of fact, when their second album, Candy-O, came out, the first album was still on the charts.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So that's the kind of impact that their debut album had.
In fact, I remember it was one of the only times that I remembered a second album like Candy-O coming out so quick. But the first album just came out, and now I'm seeing a billboard for the first album right next to a billboard for the second. Kind of like that,
Like
there was actually a rumor among the record companies, or the record company and the music media, that they actually were, it's said that they held off releasing Candy-O for a little bit because the first album was doing so well still that they wanted to kind of spread it out a little bit. I don't know if that's true or not, because I've talked to a record executive at a lecture at the time when I interviewed him about Ben, that he didn't necessarily think that was the case. So I've kind of heard a couple different versions of that. But needless to say, when your debut album stays on the Billboard Top 200 for nearly 3 years, I think you did something right.
Oh, absolutely.
I know, man. It is one of the best debuts of all time. It's like and Candy-O and I are my go-to albums with them, and I love all the albums, even their last album with Ben. It was pretty cool. But a lot of people hated that last album they made, Door to Door. But I thought it was cool.
I like Door to Door. It's obviously not as iconic as their first couple albums, but that's kind of hard to replicate something like that. And by the time, not to get into too much detail about it, but by that time when Door to Door came out, they broke up not too long after that. So there was already some kind of friction in the band a little bit, and they probably weren't as cohesive in the studio anymore, if you will.
Yeah.
But there's still some good songs on that album, and I mean, I'd rather have that album out and being able to listen to it than not have it come out. So
yeah, that's the thing that when people talk about, a group should quit or a group should stop, it's like, well, if they stop, then you think, what else could they have done? But if they do an album, even if you don't like it, you still get the choice of hearing whatever they did. Whereas if they didn't do it, then there's nothing to go by. So I'm still glad when groups do albums, even if I don't particularly like them, because it's still creativity and you still have the choice to hear a group that's still going on. And I always do thumbs up for a group that will do an album. So
of course, it gives you one more perspective,
Yeah.
I think that album was closure because you could hear how they were like disjointed and they weren't. A lot of songs on there I enjoy. I love the album, but it isn't one of their best. But it was still a good album. And you're going
like closing the door.
Yeah, you could see. Hey, man, they were on their way of breaking up. Listen to this album compared to the album before. So that was their goodbye album. You could tell.
Oh yeah.
Right. But that being said, obviously their first two albums are the pinnacle. Candy O was actually my personal favorite.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I mean, you can't go wrong with either one of them. That's for sure.
I love Candy O. That album cover is awesome. David Robinson, man,
I would.
He's a great artist.
Yeah. For me, I would say about half of Candy O I'm not particularly fond of, but the other half I possibly even like better than the first album, so it balances.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I love Candy O.
I heard some songs and I was like, is this going to get better? Then all of a sudden I was like, wow, it's getting a lot better. So that's how it was. That's how it was for me.
I see.
Yeah, Lee is brutally honest.
I was just gonna say, I appreciate your honesty.
I'm totally quirky. I mean, everything I know is on the back of an album cover, and it's to a cover that nobody else has ever saw.
Yeah, if you go look at our album review, there's albums like Help. What's this group?
Yeah.
He picked some weird albums that I go. Some of them I liked, and some of them I didn't. But it's pretty cool.
I do that on purpose.
Yeah.
I want people to listen.
Yeah, that's what he hates. Bon Jovi. I'm going to make him do a Bon Jovi album pretty soon.
You're going to hear me yell. If you've never heard me swear or yell on other podcast episodes, and you will if you have heard me on them, I'll blow that freaking speaker on his podcast recorder before we're done.
Hey, so I guess the last thing I would mention about the debut album is it's pretty cool that they issued a deluxe edition of the album. I think it came out in 1999, I believe, by Rhino Records, and it's a deluxe version of the debut album, but it also includes a second CD that has 9 rarities on it, either different versions of the song or a couple of live versions of the songs, and then there's another 5 unreleased songs that they recorded during that time that didn't make it to the album. So, and there's also a huge booklet inside with all kinds of great color photos and stuff.
Oh,
so if you're a fan of that first album and you don't have this deluxe edition, you definitely want to get it because it's worth it. There's a lot of unreleased stuff on there that is a couple of the unreleased versions I like just as much, if not more, than the ones that made it to the record. I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah,
so you should check that out.
Yeah, I'm looking at the track. Go ahead.
Go on.
I'm looking at the.
All right, go on.
All right, I'm looking at the track listings right now. It's like Good Times Roll live at Boston Theater. My Best Friend's Girl demo, Just What I Needed demo, I'm in Touch with Your World demo, Don't You Stop demo, You're All I Got Tonight demo, Bye Bye Love demo, Moving in Stereo demo, and then All Mixed Up demo, and then the unreleased songs, They Won't See You, Take What You Want, Wake Me Up, You Just Can't Push Me, and Hotel Queenie.
Yeah, I'm was going to say I'm definitely curious and intrigued to see how those songs compare, because even if they have elements of, oh, I can see why they're not on the album, they're probably still going to be definitely worth hearing, to hear the difference between them and the release songs.
Oh, they're definitely worth hearing. I think the only reason that they probably didn't make it on the album is because back then it was vinyl, and there's only a certain amount of time you had. I will say that those unreleased songs, I mean, at this time, they're a bar band, so they don't have a lot of original material. So all those unreleased songs, they were playing in their live sets every night.
Oh, okay.
So they were, playing those songs as tight as they were as the ones that made it to the record. So the unreleased songs they're all really cool, and they're definitely worth listening to. I think they just didn't make it because you only have a certain amount of time, so there's some that can't go.
Yeah,
but now you can check them out. They're really cool.
Yep, and
I'm going to go get this.
Would have known this, and some people at the bars would have known the songs. In fact, it could. I'm thinking they could have been out, in hindsight, on an EP called "The Cars at the Bars."
Touché.
Cars at the bars. That's funny. Yeah. All right, well, let's get into this album. We get to the first track, which was a single, "Good Times Roll." What did you think about this one, Joe?
What I remember about "Good Times Roll" is, I think I mentioned earlier that I actually remember the first time I heard the Cars debut. I was in junior high. I was getting ready to go to a Babe Ruth baseball game, and I got in the car with my coach, getting ready to drive the game, and he put an 8-track version of this album in the deck, and "Good Times Roll" kicked in with that car horn sounding synthesizer at the beginning. And to this day, I can remember hearing it for the first time and just thinking, what in the world is this? And it just went from there.
Right on.
They instantly became one of my favorite bands. So that's when you know something is important to you and it's iconic to you, when you can still remember the first time you ever heard a Cars note. So that's what I think of when I hear "Good Times Roll."
Yeah, I didn't even have to listen to this record for the review, because it's on my iPhone and I listen to it all the time. So I know this album. I know all their albums really well. It's like, a band that you really like, you just know the albums. You don't really need to study it or anything. It's just in your DNA. And this is one of the albums for me. And Lee, what'd you think about "Good Times Roll"?
Oh, well, this is such an iconic song. It almost seems like a cover tune, even though it isn't. It gets overplayed on radio, and I've heard it many times, but I still think it's great. A plus.
Yeah, this is a great song. I just liked their harmonies. Let the good times roll. It's like they all sing together in harmony. It's just so awesome, that guitar going down, down, down. Ellie Easton's playing is so different than any guitar player out at that time. He could freaking just kick a solo, and he could just go freaking guitar picking. He could just pick like freaking Chet Atkins. Fucking great song to open a great album. And then we get into the next track, "My Best Friend's Girl." What'd you think of this song, Joe?
"Best Friend's Girl" is a great song. It was the second single released from the album. I think they released 3 singles from the album. And I know that "Best Friend's Girl" was one of them, and I think it broke the top 40. So it was a radio hit for sure. Great song.
What'd you think about it, Lee?
Oh, yeah, well, the arrangement is late 70s for sure, but the actual song itself seems more like early Beach Boys or Buddy Holly. It has techno and twang, and it sort of sounds Tex-Mex like Joe King Carrasco. It's a neat song.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Ellie Easton's playing. This guy could like play anything, man. He's like so underrated as a guitar player. And this song is so iconic. I remember watching these videos. They had a video for this. Fucking awesome. Live video, I think. So good. Great song. So then we get into the first song that Benjamin Orr sang on this great album, Just What I Needed. What did you think about this one, Joe?
Just What I Needed is classic Benjamin vocal for sure. And I do know that this was the first single that they released from the album. And it made it to like number 27, I think, on 27 or 25 on the Billboard album chart. So it was their first official single, and, you know, classic Ben. That's all you got to say to that one.
So what did you think about it,
man? All right. Oh, well, this is the sort of song I'd play if I was dancing with my girlfriend, but I might not play it for myself. I think the words are funny, and I dig them, and the music's good, too. For a popular song, I still like it.
Yeah, this song and Let's Go. If you ever ask a non-Cars fan, do you know the Cars? These are the two songs they say they know. My Best Friend's Girl and Let's Go. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's synonymous with non-Cars fans. Oh, yeah, I know that song. Yeah, I heard them. This is a great song. This is, like, so classic. It just, there's no really need to talk about it. You just say, hey, just what I need. Everybody starts singing it. It's so catchy. It's so good. Benjamin Orr's voice just kicks ass on this track. It's a great song.
Oh, yeah.
And then
no doubt.
And then we get into the next track, which I'm in touch with your world. What do you think about this one, Joe?
Well, I think I'm in touch with your world is it's kind of set aside to me. Like it's a little different than the rest of the album, and I really like it because it's towards the middle and it kind of breaks things up a little bit. But to me, it's like it's more of a quirky kind of song. It's got some weird instrumentation in it, and Greg Hawkes does some unique things in there. So I think it's a good song to have in the middle because it's a little different to me than the rest of the groove, and it kind of breaks things up a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
So what do you think about it, Lee?
Oh, well, this is a cool, eccentric track. I could definitely see why it wasn't a hit, but it's a purposefully oddball tune that, in some ways, reminds me of Roxy Music. It's an okay song.
Yeah, this is a cool song. Like, it breaks up the album. It was just, like, totally rocking out, and all of a sudden it just goes with this quirky little tune. And it fits well in this album. I love it. And then we get into the next track, which is one track that Lee picked for one of his songs out of the 4 that we're going to play. So this is Don't You Stop on the Freeform Rock Podcast. Okay, that was Don't You Stop. So why'd you pick that track, Lee?
This is really cool. I really enjoy the melody, the singing, and the arrangement. It's my favorite song. It's awesome.
So what'd you think about it, Joe?
That surprises me a little bit that would song on the album. That's a cool thing too, you know, to each his own for sure.
Yeah.
I love the song. You know, I love every song on the album, and it's a great song for sure.
Yeah, this is a great song. I like Don't You Stop, Don't You Stop, Don't You Stop, if it makes you feel good. It's just a little quirky song that ends the inside one on this record.
I could imagine myself as a little kid singing Don't You Stop, Don't You Stop, da 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 da. My mom says, okay, Lee, calm down, we're gonna eat. Lee, get off of the table, the mashed potatoes are about to spill. Lee, don't you stop, don't you stop, don't you stop. Someone turn that song off, damn it.
All right, and then we flip it over. If you had vinyl at the time, and I have this on vinyl also.
I did too.
We start side 2, You're All I've Got Tonight. So what do you think about this one, Joe?
A real heavy type of rockin' song to me. And this starts like the beginning of the rest of the album for me. The last 4 tracks, they all it sounds funny to say, it's almost like one song to me. The last 4 tracks just fit together so perfectly. It's just incredible. So to me, whenever it gets to this song, I kind of have the mindset of this is the best part of the album. This is my favorite part. And like I said, these last 4 songs just blend together perfectly for me.
Oh yeah.
So what did you think about this song, Lee?
Oh well, this is kind of a Cheap Trick vibe to it, but I like it better than some of Cheap Trick. I think Cheap Trick could have got some pointers from the Cars. It's one of the better songs on here.
I for some reason, every time I think of the Cars, I think of Cheap Trick, because they were both innovators back at this time compared to what other stuff was coming out. You know, they were different. And this song is awesome. I love this song. I love Elliot Easton's playing on it. The whole band is just on fire. Rick's voice is just great. Great song to start side 2. And then we get into the next track, which is one of Joe's songs that he picked. So here's Bye Bye Love on the Freeform Rock Podcast. Okay, that was Bye Bye Love. Why did you pick this track, Joe?
Well, arguably, Bye Bye Love is probably my favorite Cars song. If you put a gun to my head and make me pick one, that would probably be it. It's just Ben's pure magnetism at its finest. I'll also say that a lot of the female Cars fans out there go especially gaga over this one. Including my public relations director, Donna.
She's awesome, by the way.
Giving her, yes, she is. Giving her a shout out. And of course, Bye Bye Love. I mean, I love how You're All I've Got Tonight just flows into Bye Bye Love. It's almost like they're one song to me. And of course, I said if I had to pick one, it would be Bye Bye Love. But this and the next 2 are all like my 3 favorite Cars songs. So Bye Bye Love kind of starts it all, for sure.
So what did you think about it, Lee?
Oh, well, I like this better than the Everly Brothers song. It's not the best song on here, but I do like it. I could have imagined this being a hit.
I really disagree with you on that. I go with Joe, man. This song is just awesome. I love I thought of that before he said that, but I thought, do I change what I say? I say no. I'm known as being honestly, so Lee, be honestly stupid. No, I love the way Ben's voice sounds on this. I love it when he says, it's just a quickie lullaby. You know, it's just freaking awesome. His phrasing.
Hey, I like how you say it. Can you record that? It'll be my favorite song you've done.
I can't even sing.
All right. Me neither. Let me give you one of my songs on YouTube, Mark, and then you listen to it, and then you tell me that you're not worse. that you're worse.
I think you're worse than I am, but your songs are well written. When other people sing them, they're awesome. Okay, we digress, and let's get back to this. Well, Bye Bye Love is awesome. I love this song, and I go with what Joe said about it. 100%, I approved what he said. And then we get into the next track, Moving in Stereo, which is the second track that Joe picked. And here it is, Moving in Stereo on the Freeform Rock Podcast. That was Moving in Stereo. Why did you pick this track, Joe?
Well, I know I'm getting repetitive here, but first I'll say that Moving in Stereo and All Mixed Up are like one song to me. I know I'm getting repetitive when I say that these songs all blend together, these last 4, but that's how it is for me. And Moving in Stereo and All Mixed Up, they have more of a dreamlike quality to me, the way they flow, whereas the other songs on the album are more punchy, more kind of harder driving, rock-orientated songs. I think the last two tracks, Moving in Stereo, they're just a little different, and they're perfect. They're just perfect to me. Perfect.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
So what'd you think about it, Lee?
Oh well, this sounds like it was influenced by Roger Powell from Utopia. Like maybe they heard his solo album Cosmic Furnace. It's a good song for a dance hall filled with artistic people who like to write poetry and dance. It's pretty cool.
Okay, I love this song, and it makes me think of that movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High, like I've already said a million times in this podcast. It's just a killer song. And when I smoked pot back in the day, this song was freaking awesomer. It just had so much shit going on in the background. It's like, I didn't hear that before. What's that? Oh my God, they put shit in the background of this song. It's like Pink Floyd to me. It's like, damn, this song is awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we get into the last track, which was also one of Joe's, but I had him pick two, but Lee also picked it, Joe, so you got saved on this one. So we get to play All Mixed Up.
Cool.
So here's All Mixed Up on the Freeform Rock Podcast. Okay, that was All Mixed Up. Why did you pick that track, Lee?
Oh, well, this has a suspenseful element to it, like it could be in a movie about a man who's involved with a mysterious woman. It's more serious than some of the other songs, and it's a really good deep cut. It's one of the better songs here.
So why'd you... well, you kind of picked this song too, Joe, so why'd you like this song?
Well, first, it's just such a classic ending to the album. To me, it's Ben and his smooth, cool vocal that I like to refer to it as. He was heavily influenced by Elvis when he was younger, and there's an element to that, like there is in Drive too. He's just got that smooth, cool voice that just kind of floats along. And I love, obviously, how it marriages together with Moving in Stereo. And I also think it's a classic ending to an album, how Greg Hawkes has that saxophone solo at the end that he does. And it just kind of fades away from there, like you're floating away on a cloud or something. It's just an iconic ending for an album, for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a great song. I love, like, it. I could see Ben sitting there with sunglasses and smoking a cigarette, all nice and cool, just singing this song, man. It's just a freaking great song to end the album. It just leaves you wanting more. And it's like, oh God, if I was back then, I'd go, when's the next album coming out? When's the next album coming out? This is just so awesome. And then Candy O came out. I was like, oh yeah, I could see those fans just like having like exasperated seeing this album come out. The next one, it's like, oh my God, they hit us again with a great album.
It's like they picked up It's like they picked up right where they left off.
I know. Sure. This is just so awesome. And Candy O is my favorite Cars album. that song Candy O, man, I could just play that over and over and over. I just love that song so much.
Yeah, my favorite too. But the first two albums kind of go hand in hand to me. You know what I mean? It's almost like, how can you have one without the other? Their first two albums are just iconic for sure.
Yeah. So, Joe, I'm going to have your links on the show notes for this, and I'm going to post it on Facebook pages, and I'm going to share it along. Probably find some Cars groups and put this in too. I'm going to have it up later today for you. And this album just rocks, and we thank you for coming on our podcast, man. We're humbled to have a real writer on here.
Yeah, we're probably going to have some actual real listeners now.
Maybe.
Well, I tell you what, I don't mean this in a bragocious way, but I do have a lot of Cars fans that are finding out about this book and following me. My mailing list for the book is approaching 1,000 names. So I can tell you that there's a little Cars Benjamin army out there who's following me that are now going to go and follow you guys and check this out. And I know that they're appreciative of it as much as I am. I really appreciate you guys having me as a guest. Cool. And hey, if you want to, because I'm going back to Cleveland, I want my book signing, my first book launching event to be held in Cleveland if I can do it, because it's Ben's hometown. So after I do all that stuff and the book comes out, man, if you want to have me back on, I'd love to come back and tell you about that adventure too.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Cool.
Yeah,
right on.
I really appreciate you guys having me on, though. It's been a lot of fun, and I really had a good time, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on. And at the end of the show, we pick tracks of the week. Do you have like a song that you really like by another band or by the Cars that you want to get played?
You know what? You know what I want you to play for me?
What?
In honor of the book, I want you to play "Let's Go."
All right, let's go. Got it. And then Lee picked Eric Clapton's "Steady Rolling Man."
Yeah.
And then I picked the new Greta Van Fleet, "When the Curtain Falls."
Well, cool. That's a nice little diverse selection that we got there. That's great.
We're always usually, like that.
We're like peanut butter and mint covered sardines.
All over the map.
Yeah, we're all over the map. That's why we get along really well. we don't get boring.
We try to connect, but then we bounce off each other like weeble wobbles.
Well, I'm really glad I'm connected with you guys. You got a new fan, so I'll be checking out your podcast moving forward. And on my music page, on my social media pages on Facebook, I'll make sure I promote you guys as well.
All right. Thank you, Joe. And you have a great day. So I'm going to play us out with "Let's Go" by the Cars, Eric Clapton's "Steady Rolling Man," and Greta Van Fleet, "When the Curtain Falls." So next time on the Freeform Rock Podcast, you guys all have a great week. Thank you.
Hey, take care.
All right, man. Bye, guys.